Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is curating the past. Um, kind of looking at what things we choose to keep and what things we choose to let go, and what the implications are of that for who we're becoming. So it should be an interesting conversation. Before we get started, let's take a minute or two to get present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, your molecules, your electrons, creating a brilliant beam of light and energy from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale, exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's press our palms together. Vigorously rub your hands together to feel the friction, the temperature, the pressure, the motion, the tickling and tingling when you stop. And allow all those sensations to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables us to experience life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So today we're talking about curating the past. And what brings this up is I spent some time going through old papers that cards and letters and writings that I had saved for forever. And it's a curiosity to me to be thinking about what. Good morning, Rosalind. Welcome. So good to have you joining us this morning. We're talking about curating the past. And this topic comes from my going through a bunch of letters and writings and cards that I've saved for forever, and deciding what to keep and what not to keep. And on first pass, it's so interesting because good morning, Shosha. Welcome. So good to have you here with us this morning, talking about going through all kinds of things from the past. So letters, writings, journals, cards, ticket stubs, and I travel itineraries, all kinds of stuff. I found something from when I found a couple things from when I was 13 years old. One was a little bit of a diary of a family trip that we took. Um, and so it's interesting to be looking at what am I choosing to keep and what am I choosing to let go of, and what is it that's motivating what I'm choosing to keep. And I wonder, so much of it was really curious to me. Shosha says, I have to do the same thing. So perfectly timed, as always. That's awesome. So I only had this one box that I was going through. I only got halfway through because I was reading all this stuff. And there were letters from someone I have to confess, I don't even remember. letters where I profess love and they profess love, and I have no recollection of this person and this relationship at all. I don't know who this person is. Um, so it's so interesting when we think about the passage of time, right? And there were things, there were things that I wrote that I had no remembrance of, and other things that I remembered vividly. And I wonder again about the passage of time. I have this notion that the 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 illusion that the linearity of time is an illusion, and that this is how I reconciled the notion of free will and predestination. So I'll share this with you, and you can feel into it, see if it makes any sense. But that our timeline is predetermined. Whatever timeline we're on, it's predetermined. And the way that free will gets exerted is when we make choices, because what happens is we make choices and pop onto a different timeline, which is also predetermined, but we pop around from timeline to timeline. I don't know if that's true. That's just my idea of, or my way of making some sense of what seems like the contradiction of free will and predestination. So Shosha says, that's how I got stuck last time, curated the past to liberate my future is amazing. I love it. I love that. So when we're talking, oh, so curating the past to liberate my future is amazing. Got it. So let's get back to that idea. When I was talking about not recalling some of these people, not having any idea who they are, and or were to me in that time, and it makes me think that maybe I it with this idea of jumping around timelines, that maybe I jumped into a timeline where that person didn't exist. But that's a whole other conversation. Anyway, deciding how to what to do with these things, and what to keep and what not to keep, and what is it that is making that decision. I mean, I haven't looked at these things for years, and yet I've kept them. I have journals from my cousin who who actually committed suicide when she was 40, but I have her journals, and I have never read them, but I have them. I have letters that my father wrote to my grandmother when he was in the military, when he was during the war. And so it's interesting to think about, again, curating the past to liberate the future, or to create the future. What is it that we're choosing to keep, and why? And I don't have an answer. I'm really good at asking questions. I don't have an answer, but I'm in the inquiry around this. And um, I I'm curious. I remember that when I was writing a journal, which I did for several years at least, I remember that I was writing it because I didn't want to forget who I was. And part of that was because of I wanted to remember the intelligence that I had if I was ever a parent, so that I would not belittle the intelligence of children. And that came from obviously feeling belittled, as you know, having feeling that my wisdom or my intelligence was belittled. And so I wrote so that I wouldn't forget. And it's so interesting to see the transformations, and also the continuity. It's so interesting to encounter things that from such a long time ago that are still very resonant, you know, to be recognizing that I've been engaged in the same kind of exploration for so much of my life. Um, and that's kind of, it's kind of interesting. Part of me is just wondering, what do I do? Should I just, would it be best for me to just get rid of all of it, you know, to let it all go, or not? And I guess there's a sense of being able to sort of see history, but be unattached to it, be undefined by it, perhaps. It's very curious. It's very, very interesting. And there was some creative writing that I have kept. And there were some poems or parts of poems, fits and starts for poems that had some essence to them that I actually had the thought of, I could rewrite this, I could refine this. And the notion of that is kind of interesting, to be jumping time and to be creating some kind of bridge between whatever that previous identity was, or that previous incarnation, like to we talk a lot about wholeness, right? And so there's another dimension of the notion of wholeness that's emerging for me in my mind around this, just in this moment as we're talking, about being able to, like, sort of close a circle by taking that writing and refining it and bringing it, like weaving together that that past person or elements of that past person and this present person. And you know, it seems, again, this notion of linearity, uh, that the past created the present, but there are places that we get to, I think, where you can't have gotten here from there, if that makes any sense. Like there are transitional moments that are nonlinear. And maybe it's interesting. I have clients keep what I call an evidence journal, so that when they make breakthroughs, they have a record of it and they can see it. And they can then go to that when they have times of doubt or need a boost, need a pickup. And I had spent a lot of my life pretty depressed. And in looking at that, some of these writings, I was, it's kind of evidence from where I've come, in a way, that it's not myself. So, Kara, welcome. I don't think we've ever heard from you before. How wonderful to have you joining us. Thank you. And uh, Kara, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, but Kara says this topic is close to my heart as a writer. Journaling and poetry are a huge part of my process. Well, so there's something really powerful and beautiful about that. And it was very much a part of my process too. I would just write. And it's interesting that that's not so much, it's not so present for me and as it used to be. And I do consider myself a writer on a certain level, but not an avid wow. It's so interesting. So what this conversation is really about is identity, I think, and how we create ourselves, how we generate ourselves, and how we curate ourselves, because I talk a lot about curating our stories and having having an ability to look at these writings, for example, and recognize that they're me and not me. I don't know if you have that experience, but we craft portions of ourselves in our writings, right? We we express portions of ourselves in our writings. What was very interesting to me was that I found things that I had written that were not self-reflective. Oh, this is interesting. So Kara says it's interesting to note that I don't journal much currently, but still process through poetry and fiction. And that's really, really cool. And I that's what I was just mentioning is I had these writings where I wrote these stories not about me at all, and and not in my voice, not in a voice that I recognized as I went back to read them. It was just fascinating, just really fascinating. Shosha says, wondering how to extrapolate the evidential value from my journals and timelines. There were many names and moments that while reading seemed out of context to my life, and others flashes of yesterday. I'm so there with you about that, Shosha. Like some of these things is just no recollection at all. And other things that were so vivid. Kira says, yes, I do have that experience of looking and saying, who was this? This I recognize, this I don't. Kira says it's fascinating to read what I've written in the past. It is interesting, and I think it calls to our notions of identity. And that's really where the question or the conversation comes from. Curating our past is like, what are we keeping? What are we not keeping? And some of the things that I've elected to keep are the things that seem really discontiguous or discontinuous, or just seem really like I have no recollection. So, so I've kept some of those things just out of curiosity too. Uh, and also some of these things have helped me remember things differently too. Is like, oh, isn't that interesting? I didn't recall that part. Or and I think being able to look at these things in a way that is not attached, not attached to our current identity, like not letting it dictate who we are. Ah, so Kira says, my identity as a writer is one that has been a consistent through line of my life. That's a beautiful thing. I see the identity as a writer as a communicator, for me anyway. And I think that my expression, these morning conversations maybe fulfill what the writing fulfilled for me in a certain way. I do have intentions of putting things together for a book, another book, but oh my gosh, Kara says, yes, and hearing others' memories of shared experiences is also fascinating. Absolutely, particularly because they're often so very different than our own, right? When we talk about shared experiences. Um, I recently I recently this past year reached out to somebody that I adored from, let's see, from, oh my gosh, more than 40 years ago. And because I had come across a photograph in looking at through these old things, I'd come across a photograph and I reached out and we talked, and they said something so lovely to me that I never ever knew in that time, and it kind of rewrote history for me. They said that the the first time they saw me, they just felt like there was this light around me, and that they always had this really deep affection for me. And I didn't know that, or I didn't remember that. I don't think I knew that actually. And it was such a gift. It was such a gift to have that experience. So when you talk about, yes, this shared memories, it's remarkable. Kira says, yes, communication has always been a strong value of mine. Me too. Me too. I mean, that's really my a foundation for me, is communication and learning. and teaching, the teaching just really not being not coming from a place of I know better, but more like a sharing of of exploration and discovery. So as a communicator, that's really what I value. So Kira says, I received a similar reflection of how someone sees me recently as well. What a special gift. Absolutely. I mean, still, it warms my heart so much to be recalling that. It was an incredible gift. And so I think that this writing and going back through these moments in time has been really, really fascinating. And to see it with curiosity. I guess it's sort of an unattached curiosity rather than an identification with those moments. And I'm keeping a bunch of them for now. And who knows? Who knows? So Kira says, agreed. Teaching is that for me as well, is sharing the discovery and the exploration. Anyway, thank you so much, all of you, for engaging today. This was really fun. And I think it's fascinating to be discovering parts of ourselves that weren't necessarily present, or at least uh, enriching the story, right? Anyway, that's it for today. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I go live here each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel. And I invite you to please like, follow, and share Enlightened World Network and me. The links are in the description. Kira says, thank you. It was lovely to drop in on this conversation today. Well, I hope you'll join us for future conversations, Kira. And again, it's such a pleasure and a privilege to have the opportunity to share with you and to be in these conversations. So Shosha says, enjoyed this talk so much, seeing the past as historical fiction. Oh, what a brilliant perspective. I love that. So anyway, I hope we get to engage in more rich conversations. It's such a gift.